This video will go over opening a Jupyter Notebook file, uploading some data with Python, and then doing some basic data analysis on that data. So to get to Jupyter Notebook, we would go to our Start menu, and you've got Anaconda Navigator installed. So it'd usually be over here under Anaconda, and then we'd open Anaconda Navigator. That may have taken you a couple of minutes, but once we get there, we will click on Launch under Jupyter Notebook. Now, what will happen when you click on Open Jupyter Notebook is it most likely will open your Microsoft Edge web browser. It may ask you what web browser you want to use, and you can choose. And then it will just come to this menu that has Jupyter at the top. And then this is a view of some of the folders on my computer. I can navigate through that like so. Now I've got the Bank Loans1 Python notebook and the Bank Loans1 Excel file in this folder called Assignments. So right here I see Bank Loans1 and IPYNB is a file that is a Python notebook. So I just want to click on that and open it. And it opens the notebook. So here's what a Python notebook looks like. Now, we're going to use a package called Pandas Data Reader to do some of our imports. And so if you look at this cell right here, it says pip install Pandas Data Reader. I have a number sign in front of mine because I've already run it here, but you can take that off and then run this cell because it will install this package. And so to run a cell, you can do two things. You can click on this cell here with the triangle to run, or you can hit Shift-Enter on your keyboard. Now, you should just have to do this one time on your computer. In fact, it says mine's already satisfied. Okay, so I won't need that anymore. So I'm just going to put a number sign back in front of it and then run again so that that message goes away. All right, we want to run this cell also. So again, anytime we just put the cursor somewhere in the cell and do Shift-Enter or run. Now, it didn't look like anything really happened, but it did put a number in these brackets, and that means the cell run. This are just some of the common libraries that we'll need. So these are programs that other people have written that we're using in our file. These cells with text are called markdown cells, and later we can see how to create one of those. You don't have to run them. If you do run them, it's just going to advance to the next cell. Okay, so in my folder called Assignments, where I opened this Python notebook from, I also have saved this Excel file. It's very important that you have that saved in the same folder on your computer where you opened the Jupyter notebook. So let's run that. And what that's doing when we run that is it's pulled in the information in this Excel file to a data frame called dataset. And so if we want to see what's in the data frame, one thing we can do is we can do dataset.info with these open and closed parentheses and then run that. And this is showing us the columns that are in that data. So, and it's also importantly showing us the data type. So we'll talk about data types as we go through this exercise. Now, if we want to see what the data actually looks like, we can do a number of things, but one thing we could do is view the last 5 rows of the data by doing dataset.tail and running that. And again, I'll either run that here, or I can have my cursor in there and hit Shift-Enter. I'll do that now. And so we can just kind of gives us a feel for what's in the data. Now, one thing you'll notice here is that This says there are 5,000 entries, but Python numbers them from 0 to 4999. That's just Python's numbering system. It starts at 0. So this leftmost, these numbers are called an index, and that shows which row of the data we're on. So 4999 is the last one. If we want to view the first 5 rows of the data, we can do dataset.head, and we see the first 5. And so we see that these start with 0. Now, if we want to just see just one row or a range of rows for the data, we can use a command called iloc, L-A-O-C. So we would do dataset.iloc, excuse me. And the first row would be the 0 row because Python starts counting at 0. So if we want to know the first person in the data set, what is all the data for that person, it shows us that. We can, iloc is one way to do that. Okay, what if we want to see all the values in one column? Well, we could slice that column. Now, there's different ways to do this, but let's use a different command called loc. LOC means location. Now, anytime we use LOC, if we were to put a comma in the brackets here, the thing on the left side of the comma would refer to the rows. The thing on the right side of the comma would refer to the column. Now, ILOC means index location, which is a number. LOC, in terms of a column, is looking for a name. So if we want to put the column name here, we would put it in these quotes, and the column we want is age. Remember, everything after the comma is the column. If we want to see all the rows for age, we could just put a colon, because that's the notation to show all. Now, what Python has done here is said, I really don't want to show you all 5,000. I'll just show you a few ages. Okay, but I'll tell you that the length is 5,000. So if we wanted to be more specific and get the age for one row, let's say the 4996th row in the data set, we could use either ILOC or we could use LOC. If we use ILOC, remember, Python wants a row before the comma and a column after the comma, but with the I, it wants a number. So this age is column 0. The way I know it's column 0 is go back to the dataset.info and look at the number for the column. 4995 is actually the 4,996 row. So the age of that person's 29. We could get the same value using LOC, but with LOC, we have to use the column name. Just depends what you're doing. You'll want to use both of these for different applications. So what if we wanted to assign a number as a new variable? This is important a lot. So what if we said, let's do a variable called row num, and we'll make the value of that variable 4995. If we were to do that, what we could do in our .loc is instead of typing in this 4995, we could use now row num. And this is LOC, so we'd have to use the column name. And it gives us, again, 29. So this is going to be useful. We're going to want to store values and variable names. Now, what if we want to do the same thing with ILOC? I don't have a new cell here to enter something in, but we can always create one. So if we put our cursor in this cell, over here it says It shows that we can insert a cell below or we can insert a cell above. So often you'll want to do this. Let's insert a cell below and just do the same command with ILOC. Row num represents a number, so we can do that. And 0 is the column for age. So these variables are an important way of selecting values of interest and carrying them forward. What if we actually wanted to save the result of one of these commands in a new variable? Let's call it ageVal. And so we can do some copying and pasting if we want to save this value. We can highlight this and copy with Control-C, and then we can Control-V here. Of course, you can rewrite this. Now, if we hit enter here, it places this number. It doesn't look like it did anything, but in fact, it saved this value 29 to a variable. So if we wanted to see that, we would just have to put that back in a cell and run that cell. And it will show us that it's saved 29 as the age value. So what we're learning here to do is different ways to reference values from a Python data set. All right, what if we wanted a range of values, a range of ages? If we use ILOC to get that, remember with ILOC we always want something before the comma that's the rows and after the comma that is the columns, and the I represents an index number, so that column is 0. And let's say we wanted 4995 to 4998. We wanted to see the 4,995th up to actually the 400,997th. This is interesting. If we run this, you'll see it doesn't go all the way to 4998. Okay, that is Python's convention with ILOC. And so it's going to stop with ILOC one number in front, and that's the typical range. So you have to know that it's going to do that. If we do the same thing with LOC, interestingly, it captures the entire range up to 4998. So we've just got to know, we just got to be aware of that and know what Python is giving us. Okay, so now let's learn some calculations that we can make in Python. Let's calculate the average age for these rows. And so if we use again our dataset.iloc, before the comma it wants a row or a range of rows. After the comma it wants a column number in this case. But then if we just append that with dot mean in an open and closed parentheses, what it's done now is average these three rows. If we do the same thing with LOC, of course it's going to be different because remember with LOC this range is 4 cells. And so it's a slightly different range. You can see the largest value is 65.